My name is Anne Booth-Clibborn, and I was in the army at the end during the war when I left school in 1943. And in 1945, just after the end of the war, I went to Germany. And of course, Germany had been defeated, and the devastation and the refugees and the collapse of the society was absolutely horrific to me. But I was delighted that the churches in Britain felt that we really ought to support the German people who at that time were starving and the whole country needed to be rebuilt. And Christian Reconstruction in Europe really originated there, which was one of the beginning sources of Christian aid. Many people, among the churches as well, thought, why should we feed the Germans? They've been our enemies, look what they've done to us. So it took a few really visionary church leaders, there was Bishop Bell was one of them, who really tried to show people that we mustn't treat people as enemies, because I knew that in Germany the confessing church had been opposing Hitler, so you couldn't just blame the whole community. And I think this is something that still happens. You can't blame the whole community for bad things that are happening. We had to educate church people in Britain to what it really meant to live out the gospel. Then we heard of the Mau Mau emergency in Kenya, which was really a kind of freedom struggle. And Christian Aid, Janet Lacey at that time was the very imaginative, powerful director. My mother knew her through the British Council of Churches, and I wrote to her to see if they needed somebody who was more a social worker than a teacher, and she was very interested, but said they hadn't got an opportunity, turned me back to the Church of Scotland, and I went out with the Church of Scotland to work in a community centre, but found that the Christian Council of Kenya was responding to this emergency. There was a remarkable secretary, Sam Morrison, who, when he saw what this almost like a civil war was doing in Kenya, said the churches must get together to respond to it. And they got together by setting up community centres, by doing things on home life, by getting somebody to come and work on industry and trade unions and youth. And when I arrived in Kenya, I then met my future husband within a few weeks, and we got married and were actually paid for by Christian Aid. And he was doing lay training and the whole movement towards independence, helping the churches to see the role that they could have in this new country. And I was working in a community centre with running courses for women and for children who couldn't get into school. And it was a very rapid change from being an emergency into moving right through to independence. And the churches had quite an important role in the kind of nation Kenya was going to be. I remember being in India and again through Christian Aid contacts, sitting in the dark, just getting dark, with a group of Indian women, and they were meeting each week and putting just a very small sum of money into a common pool. And that was then used for one of them perhaps to buy vegetables in order to sell them, to generate some self-sufficient. But the women were supporting each other and finding they had a kind of power, and then to go to a project there and see things to do with water, things to do with fish, things to do with new agriculture, things to do with child health, the whole widest idea of how people can raise their own standards just with a little bit of support. One of Janet Lacey's great ideas was the starting of Christian Aid Week, which was to be a week in which we focused not only on raising money in the churches, but getting out into the community. I've been delighted with Christian Aid's campaigning, because although there are restrictions on what a charity can do, justice and these issues are fundamental to how we run our world. And it's no good just tinkering with what you call sticking plasters if we're not getting to the roots of some of the problems. So I sometimes wish I was much younger and could still be in the battle.